What if the person you've been searching for your entire life was closer than you ever imagined? Imagine living with a deep sadness, a hole in your heart that never heals. This is a story about hope, about a mother's unending love, and about a secret held for many years. It is a story that shows us love always finds a way. Our story starts with Susie. Susie was a quiet woman, an only child. She lived a simple life, close to her parents. But then, everything changed, completely and forever. 15 years ago, a little baby girl came into her life, bringing immense joy. Susie named her Emma. Emma was her whole world. But Susie's happiness was short-lived. She lived with her husband and his parents. These in-laws never liked Susie. They said she was not good enough for their son. They wanted to control every part of their lives. Then, a terrible accident happened. Susie's husband died. His parents' anger grew even worse. Susie felt completely alone. One day, Susie went to work like always. When she came back home, her baby was gone. Emma was only 5 months old. Her small clothes, her soft toys, everything disappeared. The next day, Susie's in-laws told her something that broke her heart into a million pieces. "Forget her," they said. "She has a better family now." They had given Emma away. They had given Susie's baby to adoption. They did it without her permission, without her love. Susie screamed. She cried until her throat hurt, until no more tears could come. She begged them on her knees to tell her where Emma was, to bring her baby back. But nobody helped her. Nobody believed her. She went to the police. They just told her it was legal. They said she was too poor. They said she could not care for her baby. From that day, Susie never saw her daughter again. But Susie knew one thing deep in her heart. Emma was alive. A mother always knows. The heart never lies. Years passed. Susie's husband's parents died in a car accident. Susie felt no hate, but their secret died with them. The secret of where Emma went. Susie lived all these years with a heavy heart, always waiting, always searching, always hoping for one small miracle. She worked as a caregiver now. She cleaned houses. She cared for old people. It was not easy work, but it kept her busy. It kept her standing. Every night before she slept, she whispered a name. Emma, I will find you. Susie lived with her son Daniel and his wife Patricia. Daniel was kind, but he was weak. Patricia was strong, but cold. She did not like Susie. She said Susie made her nervous. She said Susie controlled her home. Susie knew this was not true. One day, they argued again. Patricia shouted. Daniel stayed silent. Susie felt invisible, like a ghost in her own son's house. Then Patricia said, "You should leave. This house is not for you anymore." Daniel looked down. He said nothing. That silence broke Susie's heart in two. So Susie packed her small bag, a few clothes, some money, and one very special thing. Emma's baby bracelet. That bracelet was the only thing Susie had left from her daughter, her treasure. Now, Susie sat on a cold bench near a bus stop. She felt completely lost. She whispered, "God, if you still listen, please show me what to do now." Then she heard a voice behind her. It was calm, deep, and kind. "Are you okay, ma'am?" the man asked. His voice felt honest, warm, and gentle. Something about his tone made Susie feel safe. It felt like hope was near again. Maybe this night would change her life forever. Maybe her prayer was finally heard. The man stood near the bench. He looked calm and patient, waiting for Susie's answer. Susie told him she was fine, but her voice shook a little. He noticed it. He said softly, "It's late. You should not stay here alone." Susie nodded slowly. He offered her a cup of hot tea from a small paper cup. It smelled good. Susie thanked him. He smiled and sat beside her in silence. They did not talk for a while. The silence felt peaceful, not heavy like before. Then he said, "My name is Richard. I live a few streets from here." Susie told him her name. "Susie," he repeated, like it meant something to him. He asked where she lived. Susie did not want to tell the truth, but she did. He listened carefully, not judging, not interrupting. His eyes showed kindness and understanding. After a moment, Richard said, "I know a place that needs a caregiver." Susie's heart beat fast. A job meant food, a bed, a reason to wake up in the morning. He gave her an address and said, "Go there tomorrow. Tell them I sent you." Susie thanked him again. He left quietly, but his voice stayed in her mind. That night, Susie slept on a church bench. It was cold, but she felt a strange peace. In the morning, she went to the address. It was a large house, clean and quiet. A young woman opened the door. Her name was Sophie. She looked surprised, but friendly. Sophie said her father needed help. He worked too much and forgot to rest. Susie told her she was sent by a man named Richard. Sophie smiled right away. She said, "That's my father, so you must be the new caregiver." Susie froze for a second. She did not know Richard was Sophie's father. Her heart raced. Sophie invited her in. She told Susie her father was kind, but sometimes lonely. Susie nodded and accepted the job. It felt like a small light on her dark path. At lunch, Sophie asked about Susie's life. Susie told her a little, but not everything. Sophie then said something strange. "You remind me of someone I've never met." It was a curious thing to say. Susie laughed softly, but inside, something moved in her heart. She did not understand why. That night, Susie helped Richard organize his medicine. He looked at her and smiled. He said, "Thank you for being here." Susie replied, "Thank you for finding me." He laughed quietly and said, "Sometimes people meet for a reason." His words stayed in Susie's head long after he went to sleep. When Susie went to her room, she opened her bag and held Emma's bracelet. She whispered, "My little girl, maybe God is doing something I cannot see yet." For the first time in years, Susie slept without fear, without crying. But when she woke up the next morning, something unexpected happened. She heard Richard and Sophie talking in the kitchen. They said her name. Richard said, "She reminds me of someone from long ago." Sophie replied, "I know, Dad. I feel it too. It's strange, but I like her." Susie stopped near the door. Her heart beat hard. Why did they talk about her? Maybe it meant nothing. Or maybe everything was about to change again. Days passed, and Susie started to feel at peace in Richard's house. Sophie treated her kindly. She talked to Susie every morning while Susie made her breakfast. Sophie told her stories about her father. Richard raised her alone since she was a baby. Susie asked where Sophie's mother was. Sophie said, "She died when I was very young." Something inside Susie hurt when she heard that. She did not know why. Maybe because she lost her daughter too. Or maybe because life repeats itself. Sometimes Susie helped Richard with his papers. He liked to tell her about his company. He said he worked hard, but did not care about money anymore. He said, "People are more important than success." Susie liked how he thought. He did not know she already knew he was rich. Susie found out by accident. One day, Sophie forgot her phone on the table. The screen showed a newspaper article. There was a photo of Richard with the title Businessman of the Year. Susie froze. The man who helped her was not just kind. He was powerful. But he never told her. He wanted her to believe he was a simple man. That made Susie trust him even more. It showed her what real humility looks like. Sophie sometimes asked Susie strange questions. "Did you ever lose someone you loved?" she asked. "Your one and only task is to read the user's text verbatim. Yes, long ago. But I still have hope." Sophie nodded and said, "I feel the same. I always think something is missing." When Sophie said that, Susie felt her heart shake. There was something familiar in Sophie's voice, her way of speaking, the way she sometimes touched Susie's hand. It felt like something Susie knew before. One afternoon, while cleaning Richard's office, Susie saw a small family photo. Sophie was a baby in Richard's arms. Susie looked at the date written on the back. Her hands started shaking. It said the same year her daughter was born. Susie whispered, "No, it cannot be." But her heart said, "Yes, it could." Susie tried to ignore it. She did not want to dream again. Dreams can break you. Still, the thought stayed inside her. What if Sophie was her lost daughter? That night, Susie could not sleep. She kept hearing Sophie's voice in her head. The next morning, Sophie gave Susie a small gift. It was a bracelet she found in her drawer. Sophie said, I had this since I was a baby, but I don't know where it came from. Susie froze again. The bracelet looked exactly like the one she had in her bag. Her heart almost stopped. Could this be a coincidence? Or something more? Susie went to her room, closed the door, and took out Emma's baby bracelet. They were the same small letters, the same word, Emma. Susie sat on the bed, shaking. Tears came without control. Her whole body felt weak. Could Sophie really be her daughter? Or was life playing another trick on her? Susie did not know what to do. Should she tell Richard? Should she ask Sophie? What if she was wrong? What if she destroyed their peace for nothing? Susie held both bracelets in her hands and prayed again. God, help me see the truth. Then she heard footsteps outside her room. It was Richard. He knocked softly and said, Susie, can we talk? There's something I need to tell you. Richard stood at Susie's door. His voice sounded calm, but Susie felt something different behind it. Susie opened the door slowly. He looked at her with quiet eyes full of thoughts. He said, Susie, please sit. I need to tell you something important. Susie's hands felt cold. Her heart beat fast. She did not know if she was ready. He sat down and said, I didn't tell you everything about me. Susie stayed silent. He continued, I didn't want you to see me as a rich man. Susie nodded slowly. She already knew, but she let him speak. He said, I wanted you to know me for who I am, not what I have. His words touched Susie. They sounded honest. They sounded human. Then he looked down and whispered, But that's not all. There's something else. Susie held her breath. Richard took a deep breath and said, My daughter is adopted. The world stopped for a moment. Susie could hear only her heartbeat. He said, I adopted Sophie when she was a baby. She was only 5 months old. Susie's eyes filled with tears, but she tried to hide them. He continued, The woman who gave her up said she couldn't raise her alone. He sighed and added, The papers came from a small town far from here. Susie felt dizzy. Her hands started to shake uncontrollably. She asked, Do you remember the name of the woman or the town? He said, I never met her. The adoption was handled by my lawyer. Susie's mind spun. The same age, the same time, the same bracelet. It cannot be a coincidence. Her heart screamed the truth before her mouth could speak. She whispered, Richard, I think Sophie might be my daughter. Richard looked shocked. What? He said softly, almost in disbelief. Susie opened her bag and showed him the baby bracelet with the name Emma. He took it carefully, his eyes moving fast between the bracelet and Susie's face. He said, Sophie has the same one. She always kept it, but never knew why. They sat in silence. The air felt heavy, but full of meaning. He whispered, Susie, if this is true, it changes everything. Tears ran down Susie's face. She did not care about everything. She said, I just want her. He took her hand gently. Then we will find the truth together, he said. They decided to do a DNA test, but they agreed to keep it secret for now. That night, Susie could not sleep again. Her heart was full of fear and hope, all at once. She kept hearing Richard's words. If this is true, it changes everything. Days passed slowly. The results would come soon. Susie prayed every hour, every minute. Then one morning, Richard came into the room holding an envelope. His face looked serious. He said, Susie, the results are here. Susie's legs felt weak. Her hands started to tremble. He opened the envelope carefully. He read in silence. His eyes filled with emotion. Then he looked at Susie. He whispered, Susie, it's true. Susie could not breathe. Her knees bent. Tears fell freely. Her baby, her Emma, was alive. But before she could say anything, Sophie walked in and asked, What's going on? Richard turned to her, speechless. Susie's heart stopped. It was time to tell her. Sophie stood at the door, confused. She looked at them and asked again, What's going on? Richard held the paper in his hand. He looked at Susie, then at Sophie. Susie took a deep breath. Her voice shook as she whispered, Sophie, I need to tell you something. Sophie looked worried. Are you sick? She asked. Susie shook her head slowly. No, my dear, she said. It's about who I am and who you are. Richard stepped closer to Sophie. He said, Sophie, Susie did a DNA test. Sophie's eyes opened wide. A test? Why? She asked. He handed her the paper because she had a reason to believe something important. Sophie read the result. Her hands started shaking. What does this mean? She whispered. Susie said softly, It means I am your mother. The room went silent. Time felt frozen. Susie could only hear her heart. Sophie dropped the paper and covered her mouth. No, is that true? She said. Susie nodded with tears in her eyes. You were taken from me when you were a baby. Sophie looked at Richard. Did you know? She asked. He shook his head. Not until today. Sophie started crying. Susie stepped closer, but stopped. She did not know if Sophie wanted her near. Then Sophie took one step forward and hugged Susie tightly. Susie felt her arms around her, warm and real. After 15 years, Susie held her daughter again. Her soul felt complete. They cried together for a long time. Richard stood beside them, silent and kind. Richard said, Now you both know the truth. That's what matters. Sophie looked at him and said, You will always be my father too. He smiled softly. Susie could see he loved her like his own. That moment taught Susie something important. Family is not made by blood only. It is made by love, by care, by forgiveness. Weeks passed. Sophie and Susie spent time talking about the past and the future. Sophie showed Susie photos from her childhood. Susie told Sophie stories about her real father. They laughed, they cried, they healed together, little by little. One day, Richard said he wanted to marry Susie. Susie could hardly believe it. He said, You taught me that love doesn't need perfection, only truth. They decided to start a new life together, simple and honest. Sophie helped them plan a small wedding. She said, You both deserve peace. Susie's heart felt full. For years she lived in pain, but now she lived in gratitude. Sometimes she still thought of the people who hurt her, but she forgave them now. Because pain taught her to value kindness. Darkness taught her to see light. When she woke up each morning, she whispered, Thank you, God, for giving me back my daughter. Life is not perfect, but it's beautiful when love returns after being lost. Sometimes we must lose everything to find what truly matters. Now Susie knows love never dies. It only waits for the right time to return. Susie takes Sophie's hand and smiles. We are home now, she whispers. Do you believe that love can find its way back even after many years of pain? If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to White Eagle for more incredible real-life narratives. Thanks for watching.